It's another edition of the online dinner party. Hope everybody is having a wonderful day. I know right here in Durham, North Carolina, it's a rainy day. We had rain yesterday. It was raining today, and it looks like it'll be raining all the way until Friday. So it is definitely the weather for the ducks, definitely some wet weather, and all along those lines. And actually, if you're here in Durham, North Carolina, every once in a while, if you go out by the airport, you might even see the ducks walking around, and even a certain part of a well, it's abandoned now and they fenced it up so you can't see the ducks as much as you used to. But there was a converted, an old grocery store area that had like a road and other things nearby that you could sometimes see the geese. But like I said, they fenced that up because they're actually getting ready to convert that into, I believe, some apartments and some businesses and stuff like that. So you don't see them as much as you did about a month or two ago and all along those lines. But if you ever come to the Raleigh Durham area, you might run across those geese and everything like that because sometimes they like to block the traffic as you're going to the airport and all along those lines. But I actually had a very good day earlier today. Lakewood Montessori School came and had a wanted to get a talk from me because one of my jobs, in addition to being a podcaster, is being a historian. So I am definitely the staff historian for the Hayti Heritage Center, which is an African American cultural arts center. So we had some middle school kids, probably around the ages of 12 or 13, that were coming in to learn about the history of Black Wall Street, to learn what the Hayti Heritage Center is doing now, and to just kind of get some of that knowledge. Because if the old saying goes, if you don't know your history, you might be doomed to repeat it. So we were definitely sharing some of the knowledge of what had happened and urban renewal, and even talking about some of the political statements that were going on in the current times. Because we did talk about Kendrick Lamar and some of the statements that were being made at his halftime Super Bowl show and all along those lines. So it's always good hearing the insights, just not that I'm given or that their teachers are given, because we did a similar talk with the kids from the whole Quaker background and the Friends schools and all along those lines. So they were having a conference, and I believe that was about a week or two ago. So they came from all over the country and everything like that. There was actually a young lady who stopped by that was part of visiting her. I think she said her niece and nephew that are going to Duke University, because I don't live that far from Duke University, but she just popped in on a visit on her way to the airport. Because sometimes if you're in a town and you got time to get it, you get to go visit the cities. That's the one thing that I hated about the event. And you're going to meet a guest that I met at this event and everything, that I didn't get enough chance. I did get some chance to get around some of Miami because I did go to the NATPE conference, which is television executive types and all along those lines. So I did go to that particular conference and got a chance to go to Miami, but I had two layovers, one in Nashville, a city that I know has a rich musical tradition, and the other in Baltimore. And we actually have a show here on Pod TV, Urban Sentinel, that is based in Baltimore, but in neither places, because there were quick layovers, did I get a chance to get out and about and visit those cities. So they're on my list of cities to go back and visit, because I have been definitely in Baltimore before, and I think I've been in Nashville before. I know I've definitely been in Memphis, Tennessee, but I think I had also made an appearance way back when in Nashville. But I know it's got a rich musical history. I am a big fan of music, so looking forward to getting to that particular event and all along those lines. Like I said, it's always good when you can get out and about, particularly on somebody else's dime. And that's what I did when I went to NATPE, because the network paid for me to go there. So that is always a wonderful thing as well. So I'm going to bring in, I've got Reverend Lillian with me. I'm going to bring her in, a couple of other guests as well. As a matter of fact, I think I'll start off with Reverend Leah. And one of her people might be coming in as well. And then I'll bring in Jeremy as well. But how are you doing, Reverend Leah? Like I was telling the audience, it is definitely a wet day here in Durham, North Carolina. It's been wet for the last 2 days. I can't remember where you are and if it's still a wet location there. But how are you doing, and how are things going with your business and all along those lines?
Mark, it is so lovely to be here. I wish that it was raining. I am in Reno, Nevada, and we have been cold and dry. Getting some snow up in the mountains, which is wonderful, but I am looking forward to some more moisture. So feeling a little envious that you have some rain going on. But yeah, doing well today. Happy to be here and happy to talk about this wonderful church that we started.
Sounds good. And I know you're going to bring your partner in later, and they're hoping to have them join us in the near future. They hadn't come yet. And
I
I'm
just
going to
talked
bring
with
them.
her. Yeah, I don't think she's gonna make it. She had an emergency and is not gonna be able to make it today. So you just get my Shannon face.
Well, that's okay. Your shining face is a wonderful face, and all along those lines, I'm going to bring in Jeremiah, who I also met at this conference and everything. But definitely tell us a little bit about the church and all along those lines, and then I'm definitely going to bring him in. And I've also got Lindsay and Lillian as well, so we do have some good conversational points and everything. But just tell us a little bit about this particular church that you are part of.
Yeah, so my co-founder and I started the first psychedelic church of spiritual integration here in Nevada. And this church is not only about utilizing sacrament in the form of psilocybin for our own spiritual awakening, but it is founded in naturopathic functional medicine practitioner perspective of incorporating diet and lifestyle practices that can help enhance the spirit, the soul, the mind, and the body, and that collective consciousness that comes with activating all different parts of our bodies. So we utilize sacrament as our religious practice, and we are protected with the Religious Freedom Act of 1993. So I'm happy to chat more about that too. So all of our members have federal protection to be able to participate in our sacrament. But again, we take our spiritual church aspect of this very seriously. So we have sermon on both the new moon and the full moon. And again, each month is going to be based on a certain theme, but we bring in practical tips, tools, and tricks for that integration practice because we are not just our spiritual selves that are participating in what we call sacrament, but also our body, minds, and spirits also need that integration as well. And so we have created a church that surrounds this holistic perspective of wholeness and well-being, utilizing psilocybin as our sacrament.
It sounds fascinating. One of the things that I didn't mention, but I did mention it to the students that came by the Hayti Heritage Center earlier, is that church, well, that actually was originally a church. It was a converted church. So as you know, a lot of buildings have been converted, whether it's in North Carolina, whether it's in New York, whether it's in Florida, or even out there in the West Coast. So it was a original church. The church still exists, the St. Joseph AME Church, and all along those lines. But the Hayti Heritage Center, which I am part of, is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year. But it started in 1869 as a brush arbor, which means that they were literally having service outside in like a field area and all along those lines. And then in 1891, they built the facility and all along those lines. And there are some churches that meet there regularly. There's a church that meets there in one of the classrooms every Sunday now. There was a large Presbyterian church that met there for several years. That was definitely a wide range in denomination. It wasn't just one race that met there. They were definitely trying to address various parts of our society, even though it was a majority probably white congregation, but they did try to reach out into both the Black and the Latin community and other communities as well. But so they were trying to be as diverse as possible while also practicing the word as they interpret it. I was just wondering, I'm bringing in Jeremiah in a little bit as well, how important do you think it is for people in general to be connected? Because you kind of alluded to it, to all of their aspects, be that the spiritual, the physical, the mental, and the emotional. And part of the reason that Pod TV was founded was because they felt that not enough of our schools were learning basic skills like financial literacy and things like that. So I was just wondering your take as to how we as a society are doing in making sure that we are well in all of our aspects of life.
God, that's such a great question. So I like to go back to the song that we all learned as a very young individual, is that the knee bone's connected to the, fill in the blank. That there's no way that we can actually separate out ourselves from our physical, mental, spiritual, and soul. And I think that in our current culture, there is such a sense of isolation. We are physically connected more than we've ever been before with the internet, with media. But I truly feel that there's such a lack of cultural competency that takes place, and there's such a desire to connect with community, to connect with people that are like-minded, to have people that are going to call us on our stuff, when we're messing up, or give us encouragement when we're doing really well. And because of that, I know that people turn towards religious organizations to be able to help support that community aspect. And I fully condone that. Our church specifically doesn't have a denomination. Whatever you choose to call source, Yahweh, God, Jesus, whatever it might be, all of that is accepted because it is important to recognize that there is a source outside of ourselves, and that there's something that connects us to the greater whole. So we don't discriminate or choose to put any ideology around what that is. Whatever gets you there is what gets you there. But what we help provide, and what I think is so needed, is that sense of community and that sense of trust that you are going to be accepted and loved for who you are. And then also, give you, again, those tools that are going to be able to help connect the not only functioning, but the thriving of your body, mind, spirit, and soul. And so that comes in many different flavors. It comes in many different forms. And again, what works for me might not work for you or the next person. And so we really try to provide a full breadth and depth of different ways to engage in those aspects of yourself, so that you can build your own toolbox. Because I like to say, you know your body better than anybody else on the planet, right? It's not a physician, it's not a mother, it's not a friend, it's not a psychiatrist that is going to tell you what is best for you. You are fundamentally the leader, the guide of what you know to be best for you. And I just really try to encourage that with all of my sermons, of putting the power back in the individual to figure out what works best for them.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'll bring in Jeremiah. And like I said, Jeremiah was at the NATB conference, as was I, which was a conference down in Miami and everything like that. It's interesting what the Reverend Lee is saying, because in a lot of ways that was what was being, I don't want to use the word preached, but definitely being touted a lot at that conference. Because as she was talking, I was thinking to myself, how many of the speakers, and I know you heard the same thing, we're talking about social media and then the impact of social media and all along those lines, and even how a lot of our young people are not paying attention to the mainstream media, but they're paying attention to what's on Facebook, what's on YouTube, and a number of other things like that. But that was one of the things that I got both from the lady that runs Amazon, as well as those people that were involved in Roku and some of the other networks that were down there in Miami. But I was wondering, as you were hearing Reverend Leah, was it resonating with you the way it was with me? Because I'm going like, wait a minute, I think I heard some of these philosophies during the conference that we were at in Miami and all along those lines. But I just wanted your take. Maybe it was just me, and maybe you interpreted it differently.
No, I think that there is a undercurrent that's starting to recognize that although we have access to so much different quote unquote connection, we are truly lacking the connection of face-to-face interaction. And I mean, although I even love being on this podcast too, like you and I aren't in the same room. Like we can't give each other a hug. I can't feel your energy. I don't know what, the sparkle party of your eyes and what that actually looks like. And I think that so much of this expansion of technology is beautiful and foundational for so many different reasons. And I also think that there is such a craving to say, I see you and I'm here for you and I can give you a hug and I can touch and feel and interact with you and communicate with you on a deeper level, because we really are energetic beings and we are emotional beings, which is energy in motion. And when I can interact with you from that energetic level, I feel that there's such a deeper connection that takes place, because I can read you like, hey, is this safe or is this not safe? Hey, do I have communion with this human being? Hey, do we align on our energetic sequence? Is there things that I can support this individual with that maybe they're not seeing, or maybe they can support me with things that I'm not paying attention to? And so much of that happens in those interpersonal relationships that is so challenging. I'm not saying that it's not capable of, but it's so challenging to do from a technology standpoint.
Yeah, that makes sense. What's your take on that, Jeremiah? And if you want to share a little bit about your own background and everything like that, and then I'll bring in the other two ladies as well. But just share a little bit about what you thought of the conference there in Miami and just your take on this conversation so far. Because like I said, the way the online dinner party works, it doesn't really have a theme per se. I just bring in people and let them learn from each other and everything like that. So if you'll share a little bit about your own background and what you've got going on and just things that you even learned when you were in Miami.
Well, Miami was very good. The conference, it's about selling media projects.
Right.
It is much easier to sell a project you have that's finished.
Right.
Number one, if you got something done, there's plenty of buyers. If it's mainstream enough. So that was eye-opening. You can sell series or films, either one. That's what it was. It was a media conference, and they're always looking for new content. But you want to hit a certain niche demographic for sure. And when it comes to like social media and meeting people and so forth, there's just so many options to meet people and connect with them through all kinds of different mediums. There's so many, it becomes a distraction.
Right. Very much. It does become a distraction for a lot of people and all along those lines, because you got everything from Facebook to Twitter, or now X, to Blue Sky, to a number of those other ones out there as well. Jeremiah, tell us a little bit about how you got involved in media, and particularly involved in the whole notion of television and film and being an independent producer. So how did you yourself get involved in this space?
Well, I went to school for this I graduated back in 99, and I've been in it for 25 years now. So that's the career path I took, and that's what I've stuck to. There are challenges, lots of changes in 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
I see a lot of potential, more than I ever have before. So there's lots of potential.
Yeah, lots of potential and everything. And this is for both of you. And then I'm going to bring in Lillian as well. And then I've got Lindsay coming in also. But just one of the things we talk about quite often on this network in general is this notion of the imposter syndrome and also balance and act. And I know a lot of times I am either fortunate or unfortunate, depending on people's point of view, that I have in 62 years been in that single space all my life and everything like that. But sometimes people are not in that space, and they have to do that work-life balance of the thing. And even if you're single, you still have to do the work-life balance. And in some cases, as Jeremiah probably can talk to, have to have multiple jobs and all along those lines. So I just wondered, how have each of you managed that work-life balance? And Lillian, if you'll share a little bit about yourself as well, because I do know that sometimes people are fascinated by how can I, if I have a significant other, maintain that family life and that balance. It can be a struggle for many of us. Lillian, share a little bit about yourself.
Hello from Australia.
Australia, yes, hello. Yeah.
Well, where do I begin? I'm a professional musician with special interest in integrative medicine and natural stimulants, including aphrodisiacs. I'm known as aphrodisiac expert. I travel the world, and for the last 35, 40 years, together with my husband, who's a medical doctor, exploring all options that are available that can heal different problems that people experience, including sexual problems. Well, what if I ask you, say, Mark, do you believe in the power of aphrodisiacs?
Yeah, I believe in that. And I definitely think that there are certain things that can be more aphrodisiac oriented than others. I mean, I've heard people that have said everything as simple as honey can be an aphrodisiac, and there have been others that can be put out there as well. So there are various ones, including some that might surprise people. I've heard some people say that certain things are aphrodisiacs oriented that shock people that they consider them. And I sometimes wonder if it's mental or if it's a proven that they actually work. Because sometimes I think that some of them are in people's heads and some of them probably actually have the effects, which you would know better than I would.
Absolutely, absolutely. And thank you very much for not being skeptic like I was skeptic 35 years ago when my husband opened old book and page came out with some sort of recipe that included all different botanicals. And my husband, being medical doctor, he looked and said, looks like love potion recipe, ha, ha, ha. And I said, oh yeah, hocus pocus, just put it in a rubbish bin. But it turned out to be a real thing. So traveling the world, I met a lot of serious scientists, doctors, historians, anthropologists, and physicians, shamans, witches, name it, who actually proved to me, and I did try a lot of things, that it works. So aphrodisiacs are natural stimulants that work through your senses on level of energy that you produce. Libido or sexual drive is life without libido is like eating food from the, instead of eating food, eating pictures in a cookbook. So you see it's there, but you can't experience. You don't have the pleasure. Nature made us sexual creatures, and Reverend Linda would quote probably that purpose of our life on this planet is to multiply. In return, we get the pleasure of having that libido going. And the best memories we have when we get old of those times when our libido was at the peak and we all want it back. And that's where aphrodisiacs come. And I'm not talking here about your champagne or oysters or chocolate or anything of that kind, but real stuff that was in different places of this planet for thousands of years and still exists, and people still use it. Yes, of course, you cannot resurrect that person, but you can feel better. And I do know things that work, starting from deer velvet, which is Pentacrine, and yohimbine, and a lot of other things. Of course, we are all different, and our bodies are different. And for some people, probably psilocybin would work. For others, ayahuasca. For third person, it could be simple Damiana. Damiana is a plant that grows in Texas and Mexico. Anyway, so everyone should try different things to select what actually works for you.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, as Hippocrates said in the 4th century BC, if you're not your own doctor, you are a fool. Mm-hmm. So take it into your hands, read books, go out and see what works for you.
That makes a lot of sense. Hey, Reverend Leah, just out of curiosity, because one of the things that I know and yours is a more modern type of church, and there are churches that come out all the time. But I was actually just talking to some friends of mine recently. They were actually thinking about doing a whole sermon around the women in the Bible, because sometimes we know the main women in the Bible, like Eve and, of course, Magdalene and things like that, but there are a lot of other characters that aren't always respected as much as they probably should be, and everything like that. And I sometimes think that because many churches are patriarchal by nature, that sometimes women don't get the kind of respect that y'all probably deserve, and all along those lines. But I just wanted your take on that, because I sometimes think that even the way that the churches treat divorce and even treat sexuality in a lot of ways is not fair. particularly fair to the ladies and everything like that. But I just wanted that part of the reason that you and your partner created the church was because you wanted to create something that was going to be a little bit more fairer than the standard patriarchal version of a church as we know it. You're on mute. You put yourself on mute.
Thank you. So that's a beautiful question and one that I think needs to be addressed. So I really do believe in equality because as much as I love living in my feminine self and being my feminine being, I also really appreciate and adore and love masculinity as well. And so from that perspective, I would totally agree with you that there needs to be a stronger voice of women when it comes to spirituality, because we house, being a cis female, we house an incredible ability to offer that dynamic because we are not one without the other. And even for the trans community as well, I think that that's also really beautiful to recognize that whatever gender that you're born in, maybe not the one that you express in your own internal being. And so I think that that's important to acknowledge. But, you know, going back to the fact that you talk about Mary Magdalene, you know, I mean, the Bible was written 600 years after Jesus actually walked the earth, and it was created by a group of men that were all sitting together deciding how we are going to enforce this doctrine. But a lot of what they translated was a lot about fear. And I think one of the big things that I personally have a hiccup with is that they said that Mary Magdalene was a whore, when actually my conviction is that she was Jesus's partner. And just in that very fact that they are choosing to demonize this person that was somebody that walked alongside Jesus as one of the prophets, that it really demeans the fact that women actually have power in this place and power in the dynamic, because I don't believe that it needs to be matriarchy over patriarchy. I believe that there's a reason why we have duality and why we come together in this beautiful dynamic to offer each other what we don't innately possess. And that's where the real power comes from, is when we're working together, when we are collectively loving together and collectively moving together from this place of recognizing each other's power and not saying one is more beautiful than the other, or one needs to be more emphasized than the other. We all have our unique gifts. We all have our own dynamic gifts. We can think about it in a family dynamic, in a friendship dynamic, in a workplace balance dynamic, that each of us has our own skill or many skills that we're bringing to the table. And what makes the collective more powerful is how many skills we bring to the table, and acknowledging each of each other's benefits and not trying to compete with that. So that's kind of my perspective.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I can definitely see that. Jeremiah, just out of your curiosity and everything, because I know that even in the acting world, you sometimes have to tap into various aspects, not just the typical masculine, but even if you are playing a masculine role, you sometimes have to tap into that feminine energy. And I'm one of those people that do believe that we have both. Everybody on this earth has both masculine and feminine energy. That's part of their being and everything like that. But I just wondered how you tap into those various energies, even when you have been in the media field.
Well, sometimes you have to think about how you're sending a message.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some people you can be more direct with, other ones you have to navigate a little differently, but you still have to get the same point across.
Yeah.
That's
That makes a lot of sense and everything like that. I can definitely see that and all along those lines and everything. What about yourself, Lillian? Because like I said, I am definitely one that believes even if you're understanding your sexuality, that you have to understand. And one of the things that I think that both genders don't do enough of is understanding their partner's needs and all along those. I think that they're part of the reason that we may have the rise in divorce and all along those lines is that too often the partners are not trying to understand what their partner wants in life, not just on the sexual side, but even what they want in life as an individual. So I just wanted your take on that, because it sounds like you have a very successful relationship with your husband. He's the one that brought you some of this knowledge and everything. But how have you managed to bring that wisdom into your relationship, and how do you help others tap into that?
Yeah, it is 50 years since we got married, since since we became husband and wife, but we dated 5 years before that. He's still a light of my life, and I still love him very much, and he loves me. Many people don't talk to their partners, and that is the biggest problem. And in my from my point of view, male and female energy is the same, and we have both present. Every single person has male and female, and it's proven by science. We do have, women have testosterone and estrogen, so it's men, just in different proportions. And when men's testosterone lowers, or women's estrogen lowers, time of life called menopause or andropause for men, andropause for women, menopause. And it is not necessary to actually experience those symptoms. You can support your system with so-called aphrodisiacs or natural stimulants that actually support equilibrium in your body. There are countries in the world where women don't experience menopause. I'm in my autumn age. I might not look it, but I am in quite considerable age. So is my husband, and we live full life. It's beautiful to be alive and to look at beautiful, handsome Jeremy and think that man is my kind of man, and it's okay to be a woman. It's okay to be a man, and it's okay to share your feelings about other people with your partner because you're still alive. And that's my point of view, anyway.
No, that makes sense. I'm going to bring in Lindsay, my final guest, and everything, and see their point of view as well. There might be another one that joins us later on and everything. One thing that you brought up, and I'd love to hear your thoughts around this, Lily, and everything, is the notion, and I am a big proponent of it, of even fantasy, because that could be a form of an aphrodisiac and all along those lines. Because I know that sometimes that my brother is with his third fiance now and everything. They actually watch the Super Bowl together and all along those lines. But I know that they do not mind admitting or admiring somebody that they are looking at and everything, that might be an actor or an actress or something like that. It doesn't mean that they're going to go pursuing them and all along those lines, but it can just add some chemistry to the relationship. So I just wondered, how important do you think fantasy is just to life in general? Because just because you have a fantasy doesn't mean that you're going to carry out the fantasy. So how important is fantasy as a form of an aphrodisiac?
Oh, it's a question for me.
Yes, Lily.
Oh, sanity is important. Mental health is on top of everything. Well, our behavior, our relationships totally depend on our sanity. Well, and there are ways to support it. One of the ways is exactly what Reverend Linder just said. It's with psilocybin and other mind medicine. I'm not promoting anything, but just as a reference. What can I say in terms of, say, if somebody wants to try aphrodisiac and see if it works for them, a simple thing. The Valentine's Day is coming soon. So why don't you go to one of the herbal shops and see if you can get some dry damiana. It is a herb that grows, it's a shrub, I have to say, that grows along the side roads in Texas, and I was almost arrested next to the Mexican border for picking leaves there. Anyway, so if it's dried, it becomes very potent. So put it in any kind of cookie dough and bake your cookies and experience the beauty of it. It's very mild, but you will feel elevation. You will feel that your juices start boiling again. Well, is it sanity?
Yeah, like I said, that's an interesting concept. And like you said, a lot of times people are still active even as they get older. I know that my dad, who's in his mid 80s, or he'll be turning 85, he is still very active in life as both an individual and also even in his sexuality with his partner of 25 years and all along those lines. So age doesn't have to stop you either as well. But Lindsay, share a little bit about what you've got going on. Because like I said, the dinner party, we invite different guests on and they share what they're all about. So I definitely want to hear what you're about as well. Because some of the things that are common that we all face, whether it is that work-life balance, which we never really got to, because I definitely want to hear how everybody is dealing with that work-life balance and also the imposter syndrome. But share a little bit about yourself, Lindsay.
Yeah, hi, I'm Lindsay. I live in Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm a flair bartender here in Vegas, and I am one of the main features or stars of this upcoming documentary called Shaken and Stirred, a documentary about flair bartending. Coming out next month, and that's me.
So how did you get involved in it? Because when I think of flair bartending, I do remember those old movies, like the ones that featured certain well-known actors, where you would see the bartenders doing stunts, like the whole juggling act and things along those lines. So I'm thinking that's what flair bartending is, but I could be wrong in everything. So how did you get involved in flair bartending, and did you get involved just when you moved to Vegas, or have you always been involved in it all your life? And where did you come from? Because a lot of people, Vegas is more of a destination than it is an actual born there in Vegas, even though I know there are some people that are born in Vegas and are natives to Vegas.
Yeah.
But how did you get involved in the whole flair bartending world?
Well, you're not wrong. A lot of people, even to this day, still associate flair bartending, whether it's comments online or while I'm at work. People do associate it with the movie. I think it came out in the 80s, Cocktail with Tom Cruise.
Yes. Right.
I moved to Vegas 8 years ago. I started to dip my toes in the water of flair before I moved out here, because that was the main reason I moved out here, was to pursue flair bartending from Cleveland, Ohio. And yeah, once I moved here, I kind of just went in head first. I did a little bit of networking before I came out here. Met some people that helped me a lot with answering questions and really how to get started and how to start practicing pretty much. And once I got out here, a handful of people in the flair community helped me, gave me tips and tricks and the right videos to watch and all that. And right away I started, practice anywhere between 2 to 10 hours a day. I started competing right away, and 8 years later, I have one of the best flair jobs you could have in town. I am starring in this documentary. I've been on a TV show with Stone Cold Steve Austin on the A&E network, which I'm super proud of that. And I teach my own classes for pretty much women only classes, but not limited to the LGBTQ plus community.
Well, everything, just out of curiosity, because I know, and I kind of alluded to it earlier, that a lot of times people are interested in being in the creative fields. We've got Jeremiah, we've got you, and everything along those lines. But how much did you have to not just only do that work-life balance, but I've got a number of friends, including folks that are in the funk music world, and sometimes they have to do DoorDash, they have to do the gig economy, whether it's DoorDash or Grubhub or a number of other things. So I just wondering, when you moved out to Vegas, were you able to just get strictly into the field that you wanted, which is the flair bartending, or did you find that you had to also do that whole gig economy? Because gig economy, particularly during this pandemic that we now are out of, became a very popular thing where a number of people were working multiple jobs. I'd be lying if I said that I don't work multiple jobs. I mentioned that I was doing a talk earlier in one of the cultural centers that I work for and everything like that. So how much did you have to get involved in that gig economy when you moved from Cleveland, Ohio?
Yeah. Well, fortunately for the reason I moved out here in the industry that I'm in, I did have to do multiple jobs for a few years, because the way it works out here is you can get hired at a casino, a bar, or what have you. 9 times out of 10, when you come here from somewhere else, you do have to start as a bar back. and work your way up. There's certain classes and certifications you have to take in order to bartend on the casino and the union properties. So fortunately for me, everything, like we'll say the multiple part-time gigs were in the industry, whether it was bartending at a non-union place and I was bar backing at Flair bars. So it was all very relevant to what I was here to do. So, I mean, it was great. Even when I was bar backing at properties that were for Flair bartenders, it wasn't what I sought out to do, but I was also surrounded by people that were professionals, that were masters at it, that would help me, that would teach me. So it was a lot of work and a lot of weird hours and scheduling and all that, but all of it was relevant to get me to where I'm at today. So that was super lucky, you know, that the field that I was going into did have these kind of subcategories.
Yeah, that makes sense. Hey, Jeremiah, how about you? Because and I forgot where you were originally from, but how much did you have to, in your 25-year career, have to deal with side gigs and gigs outside of just the writing and the media world and everything like that? And how did you manage to do that work-life balance?
Well, there's no balance. In the industry I'm in Orlando, been in Orlando, and there's a lot of AV work here, a lot of conferences that take place here. I've done weddings. I don't do weddings anymore unless you're blood related. But in my industry, there's different things you can do, but you can make more money and be more successful if you narrow what you do, narrow down your focus. If you're an expert in that field, you can be more successful. So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. So what have you narrowed down? Because it sounds like Lindsay has narrowed down as a Flair bartender. So not just a regular bartender, but a Flair bartender. So what have you considered yourself to narrow down to, Jeremiah?
I mostly focus on narrative movies, like story movies, and unscripted television, which still has a story, but it has a certain pace that it's shot at. So the kind of work I do is kind of chaotic. And that's kind of the environment I thrive in.
Yeah. How about you, Lindsay? Because sometimes people are better in chaotic situations, and sometimes people are better in more relaxed situations and everything like that. So, what kind of styles are you more comfortable with in an employment style? Because I can sometimes get in that chaotic space as well, but sometimes it can also get a little bit too chaotic and all along those lines. So, I just wondering, what is your preference when you're even working in the bars as to what kind of work environment do you prefer?
Yeah, I like the chaos. At my job, we have it's a nice balance, like the specific shift that I have. I'd say half the time it's super laid back, and you know, a lot of my job is just talking to people and having a certain personality. And for me, I'm always just trying to be a silly goose and make people laugh and entertain people. And then the other side of things is we're very sports heavy. I work at Circa Resort and Casino. We're very sports forward. So when you work during the day, like I do, you know, half of the whatever part of the year, it's very chaotic and very high energy and busy when there's all the games on and whatnot. And then the other half is very laid back. I do prefer the chaotic. I've just always thrived under pressure and chaos. I'm kind of a procrastinator, so I think all that goes hand in hand, that I'd rather have less time to think. And, you know, there's a difference, at least for me, like on a late day where there's people I know or that I just met, having to have these conversations. And, you know, there's just too much time to think. I don't like, as an overthinker as well as a procrastinator, I like the fast pace. You know, I've always been like quick witted. So like if I'm talking to people and it's not that much time, I like playing off of them and cracking jokes and saying like nice comebacks or whatever in that fast paced environment. So I like the chaos, I guess. And my life's always been a little chaotic. So it's my comfort zone, I guess.
It sounds like it. Just out of curiosity, because procrastination is one of my weak points, down points, if you will. And I think we all have our down points and everything. We all know. And if you're smart, you know what your weaknesses are. And I know that procrastination and a little bit of Oscar philosophy or messiness is part of my philosophy as well and everything. But how did you get past your procrastination? And I'm curious to see if Jeremiah was a procrastinator as well in the two ladies that are with us in addition to you, Lindsay. But how did you get past the procrastination? Or are you still a bad procrastinator? Because like I said,
Oh,
I know that I'm
she hasn't gotten past it yet. To put it in perspective, I've known about this show for a week. My hair was wet when I came on. So that's that's a small example of how I don't know. I actually, that's a lie. I don't try to fix it, but it's just always been a part of who I am. I don't know how to change it, but it tends to work out so far. It hasn't gotten me into too much trouble yet, but
that makes a lot of sense. What about yourself, Jeremiah? Are you a procrastinator? And if so, how did you get past the procrastination? And are there other parts of life in general that are your downfalls that you wish that you were better at?
I only procrastinate about important things, you know? Yeah. So, there's some things I procrastinate on. And unfortunately, a lot of times when you finally buckle down and do whatever it was, really doesn't take as long as you anticipated it to. It's just you try to fill your day with busier tasks that are smaller, and I accomplished something, but you've got this other thing hanging over your head. So I think I own a lot of stuff, like physical stuff, a lot of gear, and I am in the process of downsizing, like 80% of what I have. So I think that's going to be a big relief. Just less stuff.
Yeah, well, that stuff makes a lot of sense. Hey, Reverend Lee, along those same lines, because I sometimes think that we procrastinate life decisions as well, and I know that I am notorious for that. There have been jobs that I probably should have gone for that I talked myself out of, and one of the things that we talk about on this show in general is this whole notion of the imposter syndrome, or this belief that you're not as good as you actually are, and everything like that, and definitely having that negative attitude, or kind of like self-defeating prophecies and everything like that. So I just wondering, how much does your church address that even in your sermons and everything? And how much did you even have to deal with it when you and your partner decided y'all wanted to start a church, when there are so many churches out there? So how much did you have to face that like self-defeating belief?
I think it's a great question. And I think that imposter syndrome is present for every single person. There isn't one that can escape it. And so my guiding philosophy is fake it till you become it. I think that there's always an opportunity to say, I'm not good enough. What I have to offer isn't valuable. And I think that there's so much love that comes from the practice of your imperfection. And I think that there's a lot of people that, again, will stifle themselves of saying, oh, maybe tomorrow or maybe the next day. In my life, I wear many different hats of reverend, as physician. I'm also a consultant for several supplement companies. I do the hustle as well. And I do a lot of talks, and, you just got to recognize that nothing that you are going to do is going to be perfect. And as being a recovering perfectionist myself, has been something that I learned to love, but also recognize that there's beauty in the imperfection. Every time you do something, you learn from it. Every time you fail, you learn from it. Every time you don't quite succeed, you learn from it. And so I would rather participate in something, put my heart and soul into it, and be willing to fail versus never trying it, because that's what kicks my ass. At the end of the day is like, oh, I didn't do that thing. That's what gets to me. Not, oh, I did this thing and there was this hiccup. That's more of, the former is what really gets to me.
Yeah, that makes sense. Everything. Hey, Lindsay, just out of curiosity, because I'm oftentimes fascinated when I go to places, or when I've gone to places. I have been to Vegas once. I actually had a classmate that we actually went on a cruise once together, and then I went and visited them when they were living in Vegas. I think they're still in that area and in Arizona teaching, even though we've lost touch and everything like that. I was just wondering, what are some of the things that shocked you when you moved to Vegas that you were not expecting when you came out there? I know about Vegas's rich history, including its history in the African-American community and all along those lines, and some of the other history that existed there. But I was just wondering, what was something that you were not expecting as a Midwesterner, and I did go to school in Milwaukee, so I can use that term Midwesterner and everything like that. So, what was something that surprised you when you came out there?
Well, like all the cliches you can imagine as a bartender on the Vegas Strip and downtown on Fremont Street, which even though it is a cliche and you expect it, it's still kind of shocking some of the stuff that you see. As far as like the living and the lifestyle, like the traffic and the construction, you never really get used to because it's always something. I don't know. A lot of it is like when you walk into a CVS or like a gas station and there's slot machines in there, I'm like, that's not something that you see every day back home. And I mean, just like the silly things as far as like, there's really no such thing as a last call out here. As someone who's worked day shift and swing shifts, like getting off at 2 a.m. here, you get off at 2 in the morning. You can stop anywhere for a good meal, a drink. You can gamble if you want. Back home, if you get off in that later shift, you have to rush to the bar by 2 a.m. if you want to have a drink with your coworkers. The lifestyle is interesting, but probably my favorite thing is like it'll be a random Tuesday or Wednesday night. I'm off work. You just look on things that are going on. You can go see a super discounted Cirque du Soleil show or a famous artist or comedian or whatever, just on a whim for no reason at all. And I think it's pretty cool. You can go to famous chef restaurants any day of the week. Like people that, for me, like travel from around the country and around the world to do the walk or the show or the event that I can do any day of the week, which is pretty wild. You don't really have that in Cleveland. You get stuff, but it's all like now or never. Here it's like, oh, I want to go do that. Well, I can go anytime. So it's a pretty interesting lifestyle.
Yeah, it sounds like it. You mentioned that thing about the the machines and the slot machines. That is actually what shocked me the one time that I went to visit that friend, because the slot machines were waiting for you as soon as you got off the plane. And I'm sitting there going, this is scary. Y'all will try to take my money, and I've just literally deported from the plane, and y'all are already trying to take the money and all along those lines. And I actually did not go on the Strip when I went there. I did see a show on a part near Fremont. I think it was one of the main theaters, and it was actually Drumline. So we went and watched Drumline, and this was probably about 3 or 4 years ago, and all along those lines. But it was really good, but I did not get down to the Strip. So I still have to get to the Strip because friends of mine have gone regularly, and they tell me about the hotel that's literally you can look down, and it's got the glass ceiling that you can look below, and I can't think which one that is. I don't think it's Mandarin Bay, but it's one of those. But you can literally watch the people and everything like that. So there are parts of it that I want to get to, but I'm afraid of getting caught in that tourism trap. And speaking of tourism trap, I think the last time I was in Orlando was decades ago, and everything, even though I worked at a newspaper in Boca Raton in the late 80s. But when my grandmother was living, we went to Disney, ironically, when Elvis Presley passed away and everything like that. And I remember literally coming from Disney World, and then that coming on the TV screen that he had passed in that time and everything like that. And I think that was probably in the late 70s or something like that. It's because I don't think I was in college. I'm pretty sure it was the late 70s that he had passed. But I was just wondering, what is something that has surprised you, Jeremiah, about Orlando? Because Orlando is another one of those tourist towns, just like Vegas is, that you were not expecting when you moved there. And did you come from the Midwest as well, or you were a native Floridian? You were on mute. Hold on a second. That was my fault. I'll take you off. What were you saying?
I grew up about an hour from Orlando, but I've been here for 27 years. I'd say when I came here, there were some things that were kind of run down. Mm-hmm. All that stuff has been bulldozed and, been replaced with a lot newer, nicer stuff. There's a lot of new stuff. There's a couple theme parks I've seen built. There's a new theme park. I think the biggest theme park ever built. Universal is doing a new park. And I worked out there. I worked on the Monsters. There's a whole Universal Monsters area. So I worked on that, and it's opening in May. That's going to be a big, big, big attraction, that specific park. So I've seen that. There's fun stuff to do. I love going to Vegas. I'm going to be in Vegas in another 2 weeks. Vegas has great shows. What's that?
So shoot me a DM. Come on by. I'll buy you a drink at my bar.
I love Vegas. There's great shows out in Vegas, and there's stuff to do in the desert. But here in Orlando, it's theme parks and the beach. And the beaches are different on the different coasts of Florida. West Coast, they're real nice. They're like bath water warm, and they're flat. East Coast, they're not clear. The water's not clear, and it's rocky. So that's what there is to do in Florida.
Yeah, that's pretty tough to do in Florida. What advice? Because one of my coworkers at the center that I mentioned at, he did a play called Helen's History Hop, which was like a futuristic look at history. So there was a character that did not understand the importance of history. Then they were very futuristic minded, but they had to go back through a time queen to learn about history. So they learned about Bessie Coleman, who was a African American pilot before the Tuskegee Airmen. Sonia Sotomayor, Sonia Sotomayor, I believe is her name, but she's the current Latin Supreme Court justice and everything. And they also learned about Harriet Tubman, and all doing that space and everything. But part of what with that whole conversation was learning about the importance of history and how important history is. But his stage manager is going to take a job. He's waiting to hear back from them at Universal. So, and I've got another friend that works for Disney and everything. I'm just wondering, what advice would you give to folks that are thinking about going into working for those theme parks?
You really gotta love working there. That's gotta be the thing you're excited about. Like, I work for Disney. That has to be number one, because they're full-time jobs. They do have benefits. You are working with most jobs, you're working with this public every single day.
Right.
You know, retail jobs, you know, people rides break down, you know, it's your job. It might be the happiest place on earth, but somebody's got to work there. So it's fun to visit, you know, is not as much fun to work there. But there is employment for sure.
Lindsay, along those same lines, what advice would you give for somebody that is thinking about leaving, say, Ohio or North Carolina, which is where I'm based at and everything, and wanted to go to work for Vegas? We've all heard those horror stories of the people that either wanted to move to Vegas or move to California because of wanting to pursue their dreams of being a star and got caught up in the darker side of entertainment and all along those lines. But I just wondered, what advice would you give to people that are thinking that they want to go work in Vegas, which is definitely a entertainment destination location as well?
Yeah, I think I can only speak to like the industry that I'm in. So if you're thinking of moving here to be a bartender or a flair bartender, I think the biggest thing to be like is to have awareness of how it works out here, because it's much different than anywhere else in the country. As far as like most people don't expect that you have to start off as a bar back, especially like women don't tend to want to do that. Understandably so, because you know, back in Ohio I never had to do that. Come out here, I have to be a bar back. You have to get all this training, and like I said, we are a union town with hospitality, which is very unique to Vegas, as far as I'm aware. Not nowhere else in the country is doing that. So there's a lot of things you should be aware of, and a healthy savings account before you come out here, and just being aware of like how the housing market works, and you know, rentals and all that stuff. Not only that, but also like there's temptation for anything, anywhere. Mm-hmm. I mean, before I moved out here, everyone's like, "Oh, you're gonna end up trying drugs and this and that." I've been here 8 years. I've never done a drug in my life. So like, as long as you have that kind of willpower, like I hear on a daily basis, people are like, "I could never live here," and I'm like, okay, like you're here on vacation, so you are blowing your money on gambling and having fun, but like when you live here, it changes things. And personally, for me, like Vegas hasn't lost its luster. It still has a lot of like wonderment for me. And whenever I do drive past the Strip, plenty of time to sit in traffic and really look at it and think about how wonderful it is. But it's there's so much more. There's so much more beyond the nightclubs and the gambling and drinking. Like we have some of the most beautiful hikes out here. One of my biggest hobbies is going to shows. I go to a lot of stand-up comedy shows and theater and concerts, and there's a never-ending, you know, opportunity for that. So I think a lot of it is coming in here with a healthy mindset and knowing your boundaries and knowing that you might have to work really hard at first, but like the playtime comes later. When I first moved out here, I was not making much money, but I was just training for flair. But now that I'm set, I don't have to work multiple jobs. I do private events that hire me just because of my skill set. But beyond that, like I work my same 40 hours every week. I travel. I like we were talking about work-life balance earlier. I just kind of do my own thing right now, but it took years and years to get to a position where I'm not having to be like, oh, I can't buy tickets to this show. I can't go enjoy a day in the mountains because I have to train. I have to look for jobs or whatever. So I think that's a huge part of Vegas, is having that discipline at first so you can reward yourself later on, for sure.
Well, I noticed that you have a pet in the background, because I am a observer of people in general and everything. I just see that it look like a cat, and I used to have a cat, even though I don't have one now and everything. So how much does when you're out bartending, because I think that that's late night, is the cat ever go with you, or does the cat just glad that you're gone from the house and everything and does its thing while you're gone, or does the cat ever go with you to the bar?
Unfortunately, I can't take my cats to the bar with me. I have two, so they have each other, but there is a huge misconception about cats when they say they don't care about you, they only to feed you. My cats are obsessed with me. They've been making their special guest appearances every time I do a show. They're kind of attention whores. But no, it's just me and my two cats here. I'm single, not bragging. But yeah, it's just us, and they are obsessed with me. Every time I get home, it's all about them. And I can't even get a minute to myself, because if I would have locked them out of the room, they would have just been trying to open the door the whole time. So
Yeah, they would have been trying to make their own appearances and everything like that. What kind of cats are they?
I have one purebred Bengal, and then my little mutt right here, my rescue.
Okay, so one's a rescue and the other is a bingo, you said?
Yeah, Bengal. I had to balance out that moral compass. I had to rescue at least one of them, right?
You had to rescue one of them and get that rescue thing going all on those lines. How big? Because I've got some friends that it's not my thing, because never was my thing, but I've got friends that have got earrings. I've got friends, including some lady friends, that are in that tattoo space and everything. How tight is Vegas, particularly among the bartenders, in allowing body art, or is that something that they frown against and everything, or does it matter on the venue, or is it something that they are okay with if you've got body art in some of the earrings and things like that? Because I've got some friends that are in that tattoo space.
It does vary by venue. A lot of the local bars, they really don't have a standard with that. I think, if you're applying at a job at a local kind of divey bar, or trying to work at like Circa or the Wynn, there might be some, but that's you'll see if you go on to the websites of like career opportunities and like applications. There's a lot of the union properties have it listed as model bartender, model barback. And that doesn't mean you have to have modeling experience, like be a model. It's just because they can, I don't want to use the word discriminate, because I don't think anyone sees body art as negative, but they can pick and choose based on certain like features, like how your body looks, how your hair looks. But like, for example, my company, if I wanted to dye my hair, even if it was like, if I want to dye my hair hot pink, I would have to run that by them, or else they could be like, you can't do that. But a lot of my coworkers, they have the gauges and tattoos. One thing they don't prefer, like in my company, is like tattoos on your hands and your neck. But even some of the guys have that. Excuse me. And then, but I've also heard there's a guy recently that he had like really long dreadlocks for like the longest time, like, excuse me. And he cut off his dreadlocks just to get the job there, because they don't really, plenty of the guys have long hair, they put it back. But I think that look on my friend, he's from Venezuela. I mean, since I've known him, when he lived back in Venezuela, he's always had this long hair, and he cut his hair just for the job opportunity there. So there's certain styles, I think, and maybe a neck tattoo on a woman versus a man, they might be a little more particular with that. But it kind of depends. A lot of places hire people that only have that look. Like I don't have any tattoos. My hair is just boring. And like, it might be like, you're not cool enough. I'm not cool at all. So I don't blame them. But yeah, it varies on what position you're going for, and, the type of work it is, I guess.
Yeah, that makes sense. Hey, Reverend Leah, just out of curiosity, and I know that you've got different people that are part of your church and everything along those lines, are we seeing a shift away from body imagery and stereotypes around body imagery? Because one of the things that I was pleasantly surprised by, and like I said, I don't know if Jeremiah noticed the same thing, but he was flying from Orlando to Miami, so he was probably on maybe only 2, or maybe he drove down to Miami when we were at the conference where first learned of him and everything, added everything. But in the flight, and I mentioned that I was on 4 flights, Raleigh to Nashville, Nashville to Miami, and then vice versa, Miami to Baltimore, Baltimore to Raleigh, Durham, and everything. And on those 4 flights, that stereotypical image of the tall woman flight attendant, nobody was really that, because there was all body types and all kinds of people that were there and everything in terms of the stewardesses. And of course, there was that always stereotype back in the 70s and 80s of the stewardess being a certain image and everything along those lines. But we got away from that stereotype, because I was actually pleasantly surprised to see a variety of types of people that were in that job that in the past had been a stereotypical tall, maybe blonde woman job in the past. But it seems like, at least in the stewardess field, we've gotten away from that. At least that, given this was a limited sample, I don't know what the other place would have looked like, but on the 4 planes I was on, nobody would have fit that stereotype.
Yeah, well, I think there also used to be job requirements
Right.
that I know of, back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. If you didn't hit that stereotype of, single and thin and tall and yada, 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 you couldn't be a flight attendant. So, yes, I think that there is more of an appetite for that now. I think especially as people are starting to express themselves from a body image perspective, that just by having more people do that, there makes more tolerance for it, right? So by coming out and saying, hey, this is who I am, obviously there's going to be more opportunity for people to say, hey, I see you, and me too, and whatnot, or hey, I see you, and that's beautiful, and give more encouragement to that. So I think that there is a changing flavor in our general culture as far as recognizing that we can be our own beautiful expression, and that is valid and worthy. And I also think that, people, like I said earlier, are very much turning towards tattoos and piercings. Not that I am omitted from that. Or biker gangs, or your vegan culture, or your spin class, or your I don't know, fill in the blank, as far as wanting to fit into culture. And I think that as we have moved from our cultural centers of community, we are now finding cultural centers in how we express ourselves. And so because of that, I think that there's more acceptance of that, because each of us are trying to find our community in one way or another. And sometimes that happens with body perspective.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense and everything. As you were saying that, I was just thinking to myself that whole attitude of the way we treated everything, and even the religious aspect. Because I know that during the pandemic, and I would even argue probably 10 years before the pandemic, we saw a lot of people getting involved. And I think your church was, because you mentioned the mushrooms earlier, is part of that as well. Are we seeing more people that are interested in crystals and some of the more Eastern kind of philosophies that had existed before? Because I know some people even here in this area that are proponents of crystal lifestyle and metaphysical aspects of crystals and all along those lines. So is this something that is becoming more prevalent in society from what you're seeing, even in the creation of your church?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that there is one thing that media has given us is the opportunity to recognize that we are in control of our health. There is so much more of an ability to be an informed patient. And because of that, people are seeking real care. And not only from a patient perspective, but also a physician perspective, is that we're recognizing that conventional medicine is addressing symptoms and not systems. And because of that, I think that so many more people are going to traditional botanical medicine, like Lillian was talking, as far as sexual health is concerned, or there's a whole nootropic, like enhancing cognitive wellness through medicinal plants. There's also, recognizing that your body knows how to be well and wants to be well. And so there's a lot of different aspects and a lot of different knowledge to be able to tap into that. And yes, maybe it is psilocybin, maybe it is other different types of psychedelics, maybe it is other different types of plant medicine. But I think that it's important to remember that we have co-evolved with our planet and co-evolved with the medicine that is on this planet. And every type of pharmaceutical was originally derived from some sort of medicinal plant. And so with the resurgence of, or maybe not resurgence, with the expansion of information that is available to us, as well as the collective conscious evolving and recognizing that what conventional medicine has to offer is not treating us, it's placating us, that we come back to our traditional wisdom of what we know and how our bodies know how to respond to, so that we can actually participate in wellness and not just participate in symptom management.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and I can definitely see that and everything along those lines. Lillian, if I remember correctly, you're over there in Australia, which means that it's very late and everything like that in your neck of the woods and everything. But what is something that folks might be surprised about Australia? That's that to Lillian, and I mean not to Lillian, but to Jeremiah and to Lindsay earlier. But what was something that folks might be surprised about that whole land of down under? Because I'm thinking it's got to be about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning where you are and everything like that. But what is something that folks might be surprised about your area?
Well, being aphrodisiac expert, I should say native aphrodisiacs, but I'll say the beauty of the land. It is amazing, vast land where towns are small, where we have only 4 or 5 major towns. Everything else is just freedom. You drive and you see desert. Next thing you see beautiful mountains, and surrounded by just endless beaches, pristine beaches with sand like golden powder, or coral reefs. I am not very good ambassador for travel, but I did travel the world. I've been to over 150 countries, and
Holy shit.
Australia is one of the nicest places that I find everything what I want. If I want to relax, there are retreats here. There are springs with water that heals your soul and body. There is incredible food. We have lobsters, which you guys love, this size in WA, which is Western Australia, and king crabs that you can't just hold in your hands, that how big they are. Well, and they're all aphrodisiacs, huh? I just wanted to touch on Lindsay's flair by bartending. It is known that alcohol excites, and some people take it as aphrodisiacs or something that can excite a person, but only in small doses. It does work as aphrodisiac and it does excite, but if you take a little bit too much or more than your body can take, well, actually it works as anti-aphrodisiac. So instead of having fun, you would fall asleep. There's another thing about alcohol. Of course, we all know ancient wines. Well, wine is an ancient drink. And it's good for you, especially the red wine, for your heart and for your body. Yes, it does do a lot of good. But let's talk about beer.
Mm-hmm.
Mark, do you like beer?
Yeah, there's certain beers I'm a Heineken drinker, and there's certain other beers that I'm a fan of, and everything. But yes,
Okay, in this case, you might think again before you drink next pint of beer. Hops that go in it. It is plant
Right.
that actually gives that beautiful flavor and yeasty smell that you can't resist. Actually, it triggers estrogen production in your body, big way. And that's why we know beer bellies
hmm
that men gain when they drink beer. So with that, it's not just beer bellies, it's also, it lowers libido
yeah.
drastically. So if you want a little alcohol, it's fine. Too much, no good. Beer, for men, avoid. For women, if you want good skin, go for.
Well, and actually, back in the 1600s, just
Wanted to talk to Jeremiah. I can
Oh, I don't-
say that once upon a time, I was approached by Fremantle Media in LA, in what is that? Burbank. They're sitting there. And they wanted to do a series on aphrodisiacs with me, but I was busy because I did run 4 businesses at the time in Australia. Plus, I was involved with my hobby, which is just known now. It's natural stimulants, aphrodisiacs. And I couldn't do it. I'm ready now because I offloaded things that I was doing, and mainly distillery that was producing aphrodisiac liqueur, which guy who the founder of Flair Bartending, and he's in Hungary, approached me to do worldwide. So that's a little piece of information for Lindsay. So if you are interested, Jeremiah, I will contact you offline and we can talk about it.
all right. I reached out to you through LinkedIn because I had a question about your book that you wrote. I saw it on Amazon. The book you wrote, does it have the recipes for the? Yes, that's the book. Does that have the recipe? Okay. And Lindsay, what shift do you work?
I work at circa Wednesday through Sunday, 10 to 6, typically. Sometimes I take days off, but yeah, find me on
You
Instagram.
work the day shift.
Oh yeah, it's the dream.
The dream.
Get up at 6 o'clock every day. I have a very normal lifestyle. It's fantastic.
What's a show, Lindsay, that you would like to go to that you haven't gone to? Because there's all those great shows you mentioned, the comedy shows. I know some people that are affiliated with some comedians in the California area, as well as some here in the local area, including some improv comedians. But what's a dream show that you're hoping to come to Vegas, or that's come to Vegas that you just haven't got to yet? So what's a show that you're hoping to see that you haven't seen yet?
Yeah. Well, we do get a lot of the comedians. It's weird because I don't do comedy, but I have a lot of friends that are like very big comedians. And sometimes the comics don't like to come through Vegas because it is such a tourist and like party town. And other times they always come through Vegas on their tour. That's a really good question. There's so many comics that I'm like, I hope they add Vegas to their tour that have in the past or haven't yet. But man, I've seen a lot of the shows on the Strip. I guess the ones I have left to see, there's a couple at the Wynn and the Venetian that are like the Cirque du Soleil or Spiegelworld. And then there's a bunch of comedy shows coming up that I already have tickets to. I'm trying to think of the name of it. There's one at the Wynn I heard is really good. It's called Awakening. And it's more like, it's like the Cirque du Soleil style. I don't know if it is Cirque or not. But that one's supposed to be really good that I haven't gotten to see yet. And then there's a comedian. I'm actually going to go see him tomorrow night, Steve Byrne over at Jimmy Kimmel's Comedy Club. He has a residency. I just keep putting it off, but I'm going to go check that out tomorrow night, I think. And then, yeah, there's just always so much coming up. There's a lot of comics coming here in May. So it's going to be a busy month for me.
It sounds like it'd be a busy month of catching some great shows and everything like that. I actually had a friend of mine, China Tucker, that worked on the Cirque du Soleil show. She's back here. She's a celloist, if I remember correctly. It's definitely
Oh,
one of
so cool.
so
That's
she was part of
incredible.
that show and thoroughly enjoyed being part of it. So she played, I think, when they came back here, but she's back in the area. She's got a teenage son, if I remember correctly. I don't think he's gone into his 20s yet. I think he's a teenager and all along those lines. But it would be fascinating to see that and everything.
Yeah. Oh, incredible.
Yep. Jeremiah, have you made it to Australia? We were talking about the places that are
No.
on your wish list, but is that on?
I've made it to about 7 countries. Australia is not one of them. But no, not Australia. South Africa's great. I would go back there in a heartbeat.
So you did enjoy South Africa when you were there? What other countries have you been to?
Jamaica, a lot in the Caribbean, Barbados, Jamaica, Nassau, Canada, Mexico, Israel.
How was Israel? That's the Holy Land. So how was Israel as a place to visit? I mean, it's a conflict zone right now, but how was it during the time?
I was there to work and then I got sick. You don't want to be sick in a foreign country. Because like you go to the store, none of the medicine's in English. It's in Hebrew, and you can't figure it. It's like I can't even guess. So I was miserable. I just worked and then drank hot tea and sat in the shower all the time. It's not a great trip.
No, and sometimes you can get sick on trips. Like I said, one of my coworkers actually came down with a cold. I think they're over it now with doing the NATP conference, so they didn't do as much as they probably would have liked because they were under the weather. And then I talked to somebody that might be on our show in the near future, and they actually had, you hate when you hear bad things happening during trips, but they literally had their phone disappear on them. So they had to get a new phone because they lost their phone while they were at the NATP conference. So they had to get a new phone. So they sent me a note with the new phone number, and hopefully we'll have them on as guests. I think they were out of one of the, they might have been either London or one of the African nations, but they were definitely complaining that they had lost their phone and all along those lines doing that particular trip. So sometimes those trips can be good, but they can have their sad moments as well and everything like that.
If you're ever gonna leave the country, go to the doctor and they'll give you a prescription for some antibiotic. Just get it and take it with you. If you're ever gonna leave for I learned my lesson the hard way. So now if I'm ever leaving, I call the doctor. Hey, could you write me a prescription? And I take it because you don't know. You could be very miserable in a place you can't get help.
Yep, that's very true. Hey, Lillian, you talked about the food, and I know food and drinks can be aphrodisiacs, because it's just that, because I've also heard some people that have found it to be an aphrodisiac to have that companionship, even of a animal, like a cat, and the rubbing of a cat can be something that can calm and stimulate or calm nerves. And that would be more of a calming nerves than an aphrodisiac. But I've definitely heard people using music as an aphrodisiac. So I'm just wondering, does it have to be food, or can it be something else that is also in that space, or is it just always going to be food and liquids?
No, absolutely not. Anything that works on your senses can be called aphrodisiac. Say smell, sense of smell. Not many people are aware that inside of our nostrils, there's another organ that's called VNO, veronasal organ. Little tiny slits that open, and they detect pheromones from other people that are compatible with you chemically. And that's why all of a sudden you can get attracted to somebody who looks horrible. But then you look again and again because you feel good about it. And that's pheromones, the power of our senses. So if you pet your cat and it gives you pleasure, it's tactile aphrodisiac. It could be light, it could be music, it could be chanting, it could be warm bath, it could be anything that gives you pleasure is aphrodisiac. If we talk about shows in Vegas, going back to Lindsay, there was one show that 5 Australian guys from Sydney put up, and they had been in Vegas for probably a good 5 years. I'm not sure if the show is still on. It was staged in Sex Museum in Vegas on the Strip, end of the Strip. And it's amazing. It's not dirty. It's interesting and funny. And if it's still on, I highly recommend, Lindsay, for you to go and actually enjoy it.
Australian men, yeah, that's all the convincing I needed.
Well, I've seen that show. It's puppetry of the penis.
That's the title of it.
Puppetry of the penis. They take their testicles and they twist them almost like balloon animals.
Yeah,
So it's not the Thunder from Down Under. It's at the Erotic Heritage Museum. It's a funny show, but it's
I might be all set on that. I don't know.
It's a lot
the
of
Aussie
fun.
bitch. There's some talented folks over there.
There's some talented folks, and we can wrap up the show. That's all with your note, Reverend Leah, and everything. But just out of curiosity, this is for everybody, but I'll start with you, Reverend Leah, and everybody will get ready to wrap up very shortly and everything. I've had some friends, including some younger friends in their 30s and 40s, and like I said, I'm in my 60s and maybe even some in their 20s that have talked about this notion of soulmates and twin mates. It sounds like definitely Lillian has found her soulmate because she's been with her husband, including the dating years, for about 55 years and everything like that. But I've also heard people talking about twin flames and everything like that. So like I said, I have yet to, I found some friends that I know are soulmates because we're still friends to this day, including that young lady that I went to Vegas to visit and everything, but it wasn't the romantic soulmate or the life partner soulmate and everything. So I guess the question I've got for you, Reverend, is do we have just one soulmate, and is twin flames a real thing, and does your church even address that and everything, or do you think that it is something that is given too much hype and everything along those lines? I just wanted your take on this notion of a soulmate, and is there more than one soulmate, and is a twin flame a real thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Really great question. There's 8 billion people on this planet, and how many other pets and lovey other beings that are there. I absolutely believe that we can find communion with more than one. And that can come in many different forms. It can be in the form of a lover. It can be in form of a friend. It can be in the form of somebody that we are attracted to. It can be in the form of somebody that we have great philosophical conversations with. I think that it's endless. I think that my philosophy is that God in itself is too big to fit inside one religion. And so therefore, every way that you practice is valid and beautiful. And I also think that is the case with love as well, that there are so many different ways to experience love. Every Native tradition has over 5 different words for the word love. So I love you as a friend. I love you as a, intellectual being. I love you as a partner. I love you as a sexual being. I love you. I mean, there's different words for each of those. And so from the aspect of what we think about love, and in the Western world, I think that it is too finite to actually encompass the depth and breadth of our capacity to love and the expansion of how we do love. And our church absolutely talks about all of that. I think another really important thing, our theme this last month, or in the month of February, has been self-love, because that is another aspect that gets so often negated and neglected. And again, coming from a full cup is how we can offer that to others. And so often we negate paying attention to ourselves, loving ourselves, participating in all of the different ways. And I'm sure Lillian can, expand on this so much more so than I can. But yeah, love is not finite. I don't believe that. And it's beautiful to find people that, have that partner for 50 plus years. And congratulations to you, Lillian. I also believe that there's lots of opportunity to find love in many different ways and many different aspects. So
Yeah, no doubt. You just touched on it. How important is self-love in general, and what do you think we can do to encourage self-love? Because I think sometimes that is one of the things that hurts our school kids. Like I said, I don't have any kids of my own, but I do have those two nephews that are 15 and 16, and I know that they love themselves, but I sometimes think that our kids don't love themselves enough and also don't tap into their inner child and everything, because I think sometimes we as adults lose that childhood wonder once we go into adulthood. But I just wanted your thoughts around self-love and how we can do better in terms of encouraging self-love, whether it's on the school level or as adults.
Well, I think that the first aspect of that is recognizing that self-care isn't selfish, is that it's maintenance. So just like we, fill up the air in our tires and we change our oil in our cars and we, put nourishing food in our refrigerator and we exercise and we drink water, self-love is that maintenance. And there's so many different ways that we can tap into this, but I think that the first step is acknowledging that this is part of our overall well-being. Um, a couple of practices that I love to do and encourage people in our church to do are breathing practices, because I don't think that we've ever been taught to breathe correctly. I think that it is also going into how we have our daily routine. So we create the lifestyle energetically on how we do our day-to-day life. So if we wake up in the morning and the first thing that we do is look at our phone and toss our covers over the side and shuffle over to the coffee maker to, you know, make our coffee, and we're kind of like in this dazed state, we're not acknowledging that first part of how we interact with the world. And how that can look very differently is that we get out of bed and we go to the bathroom and we brush our teeth and then we make our bed and then we go and greet the sunshine and say, okay, here's my intention for the day. This is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to focus on. And then we go through the rest of our morning routine. We have some movement on board. We take that time and space in the morning time to set our intention of, hey, I'm paying attention to myself so that I can show up later in the day and be more present. I think that that can be a foundational step that we can take. There's many other things that we can do, but having that first 20 minutes, 30 minutes in the morning be a sacred practice, I think really sets the tone for how we approach the rest of our day, as well as approach the things and stuff and people and nourishment and things that we take into our bodies the rest of the day, how we interact with that. So I would say there's lots of things that we can do, but that first 30 minutes is a really critical time to pay attention to.
It makes sense, everything. And I know you've got to go to your other appointment. And like I said, we'll wrap up the whole show in a few minutes and everything. But one thing I get all my guests to do and everything, so I definitely want to do it with you right now, Reverend Leah, is I give you an opportunity to share the book. I know that definitely Jeremiah had bought, or at least got a copy of, or knows where the copy is and everything. So definitely let folks know how they can reach your church and everything like that. And also how they can just reach you in general. And one of the things that I love doing on this network and on this show is giving everybody an opportunity, and y'all have been doing this all for the last hour and a half, give a message of positivity, because Pod TV is a global network. So I love to be able to have a message of positivity from all my guests and everything like that. So if you want to share your message of positivity.
Yeah, I love that. So you can reach us at setasseminary.org, SETAS seminary.org. You are more than welcome to become a member. It is free of charge. Once you become a member, you can also you'll automatically be signed up for our newsletter. So you have access to all of our events that we do, all of the community outreach, all of the podcasts that we're on, and the speaking events that we participate in. So that's a great place. Our Instagram handle is setas.seminary. And I'm trying to think. Oh, my positive note. You are more than enough. You are loved and appreciated and cared for exactly how you are, how you represent today. And there's always opportunity to grow in that love, but you are enough exactly how you represent today.
That makes sense. Just out of curiosity, like I said, I don't want to hold you up too long because I know you got to go to the other appointments and everything. What do you say to those critics that would come to you and say, there's 1,001 churches and there's tons of churches that already exist. Why do we need a new one and everything like that? So what, because I'm sure you're probably going to get that if you haven't already got it, where people will be like, there's like, Buddhists, there's Muslims, there's different other churches. Why do we need a new one? And why are y'all the new one?
So, we accept you exactly who you are. We recognize that there's a mental health crisis going on the planet, and we want to make that not taboo. It is not okay to talk about mental health. It's not okay to talk about how we struggle. For example, how are you doing? Everybody answers, I'm fine. We want to break through that paradigm of this is what is acceptable. We want to be able to say, hey, I'm not doing well. I'm struggling. I'm dealing with X, Y, and Z. And you have a community to be able to do that. Psilocybin is a very safe psychedelic compared to the rest of the psychedelics. And we utilize that as sacrament to help catalyze you to move forward. So a reason why you would join our church is, again, there are very few psychedelic churches on the planet. So we not only utilize that as our sacrament, but we also bring in community to help with that integration support. So we're unlike any other church you've ever been to. I can guarantee it. We have a true and sincere devotion towards your personal well-being and recognizing who you are as an individual and not trying to change that, but support you from where you're coming from. And the doctrine is that you are love. The doctrine is that we're here to support you in what you need. And we are going to provide you with this remarkable toolbox that you're going to choose from to make your own toolbox. So it's not my way. It's not this other person's way. It's not that person's way. It's what works for you. And I think that that's what creates a really unique perspective on how we operate as a church, is that we're not telling you how to be, how to do, what to act, or how to act, what to take. It is, you are you. Let's help facilitate you into your most thriving version of yourself.
That makes sense and everything. Hey, Jeremiah, Reverend Leah mentioned self-love. What is the self-love practice that you have in your own life, and what do you do to encourage yourself through a self-love practice? Yeah, Jeremiah.
I eat right, I guess that's the biggest thing, it's what, like you said, someone said earlier, healthy food in the refrigerator, you eat junk food, you feel kind of junky.
Right. That's very true. And do you get enough exercise? Because I know sometimes we in the arts world can talk ourselves out of getting into that exercise space. Or do you one of those people that is a gym rat and tries to get by the gym?
I am not a gym rat, but I get some activity in, yes.
Well, that's always a form of self-love as well. And I'm thinking that based on what I saw of you out at the festival, that you're probably an avid reader and an avid doer as well. So that could be a form of self-love also. Definitely tell folks a little bit about your projects coming up and everything. Like I said, we'll wrap up in a little bit. So I'm going to get to Reverend Lillian and to Lindsay as well. But just tell me a little bit about some of the projects you've got going on and all along those lines. And definitely anything that you've got immediately coming up that you want to share with the audience, and anything that you've got that you'd like to share in the message of positivity.
Immediately coming up, I've got some corporate work that I'm doing, corporate video work. And after that, I have like a series, a couple of different unscripted series I'm a part of. So that's what I've got going on.
Okay. What is any themes within those unscripted series that you can share with us or anything?
One of them is about mental health and tattoos. Not that one. Just kind of like people have scars and then they get a tattoo to cover up that scar. That's like a physical, and then some people use tattooing as like a way to address trauma.
Yeah. That makes sense and everything. What about you, Lillian? Oh, your message of positivity, Jeremiah. Then we'll go down to Lillian.
I'm
My
sorry.
message of positivity would be, every day is different. Some days are better than others. So, and I think most people can, when they think about most memories, they think about the positive ones more than the negative ones. They always seem to outweigh.
Yep, that's very true. Lillian, if you tell folks about your book and how we can get a copy of the book, those that have been watching, and we do air the shows rerun during the course of the week as well. So if you tell folks, I'm sure that there'll be some purchases and all along those lines, and your message of positivity. So if you want to share a little bit about more around the book and the title of the book, and also how folks can get it, and your message of positivity.
Sure. The book's title, Aphrodisiac Adventures. I basically describe there what we discovered in probably 10, 15 countries. Of course, every country has something else to offer, some ethnobotanicals or some substances, some things that blow your mind, like menstrual blood or half-hatched eggs called balut in Philippines, or Zaluf from Israel, where Jeremiah was not long ago. Some things work, some things don't work. And in the book, I describe what worked. And what worked for me, what worked for my husband, what worked for my friends, and also what historically worked. So there are some jokes, some legends, and some interesting facts that you won't find anywhere else. Like story about Tsar Peter the Great and his wife, known as Empress of Russia, first Empress of Russia, Catherine I, who used to be just a maid, and with help of certain aphrodisiac, she got, into with king, with the Tsar. So anyway, if you talk about self-love, going back into that topic, in my world, self-love is your duty. It's a duty to your partner, so you look, feel, and sustain your health to the point that you are not a burden to other person, but fun. So yes, we all have days when we feel our energies are down, where we procrastinate and don't do things. We all are human beings, but always think of somebody else who wants you to be in that lovable state. So self-love is important. It's a duty.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense and everything. So that's a very powerful message. And all along those lines, we have one other guest that joined us, and they did tell me they'd be coming in late and all along those lines. And they've got the Daily Decision, and they are definitely always talking about ways to bring sunshine to the world. So I'm going to bring in Deborah real quickly and everything, but I'm also going to get to Lindsay as well, because I know the rest of you got to get out and all along those lines, but she's part of the Positive Energy Club and all along those lines and everything like that. So she's definitely involved in that space and has ways to make our lives easier and all along those lines. So like I said, we've been having this party. So Deborah, glad that you were able to join us. So just tell us a little bit about your book and some of these things that you've got going on with the book and the Positive Energy Club in general. So just share a little bit about what you've got going on, because we've had a young lady that started her own, or is part of a church. She's already left and everything. We've got Lindsay, who is a flair bartender. We've got Lillian, who is part of a studying of aphrodisiacs, and then we've got Jeremiah, who is a filmmaker. So that's the guest at the dinner party today. But you did tell me that you'd be coming in for the last 15 or 20 minutes, because as I told you, I've got to wrap it up close to around 6 or a little bit after, and then get to my other event that I've got going on. But I did want to give you time to share your wisdom as well.
Oh, thank you. And I agree with you about self-love, Lillian. It really should be something that we embrace. And that's what I always talk about, is self-care. And especially, as Valentine's Day, because this is how we sort of got introduced because of the Valentine's Day side angle of all of this. And when we're single, and there's nothing wrong with that. Actually, times in our life, we need to, why make things difficult and just be with someone to be with somebody? We have to love ourselves enough to enjoy our company, enjoy our friends' company, have a party with your friends. Don't dwell on what you don't have. Think of the abundance mindset and what you do have. And sometimes when we try too hard, that's when things don't work out anyhow. So we have to give ourselves some grace. Easy to do? No, but baby steps and retraining our mind to be personally considerate and also to avoid the negative thoughts and to stop them by distracting slowly but surely. Since the brain loves patterns, we make new patterns. We just have to give ourselves permission to do that. And as Lillian said, to love ourselves and value ourselves, to honor our dignity and protect our value. So that's what I share on the almost eve of Valentine's Day. And I wrote a book that really reinforces all of that. To enjoy more, worry less. It's called 6 Steps to Fewer Days That Suck. And who doesn't need that?
No doubt. What are some of those 6 steps to fewer days that suck? Because a lot of times people are in that mindset. So unfortunately, most of the people we've had today have enjoyed their life. I know that at least I get the impression that Jeremiah enjoys his work there in Orlando and his stuff in the TV and narrative field and everything. And I can definitely say that Lillian enjoys her work as a aphrodisiac expert, and Lindsay definitely seems to enjoy her life as a flair bartender, as well as her enjoyment with her cats and all along those lines. But she is in that single space as well, in that younger single space, but I don't know that she's even trying to get out of that single space. So some people are comfortable with the single space and others are trying to find that other half and everything. So I don't know if you're comfortable with your space that you're at, Lindsay, or if you're trying to find that other companion, whether that's another person if you're in the LGBT community, or whether that's a male if you're not and everything, or you're just like, I'm good.
I'm good, man.
You like yourself, right? And that's a good thing.
I tolerate myself. I'm just kidding. No, I definitely do. I've taken the last 3 years to do a lot of like self-love practice and learning to, have the right perspective and how I don't know, just who I am as a person. And I'm very comfortable with who I am. That's why I do so much stuff solo, because if you can't hang out with yourself, why is somebody else going to want to hang out with you?
You hit the nail on the head. I truly believe that too. And it is about perspective. That's really what it's about. And if you want to go negative, you can go negative. But the question is, why? Why would you? And I feel for people that are stuck. I mean, that's why I wrote this book, because I was stuck and I was in a negative thought pattern. And I wrote it really for me, not to put it out in the world. And people said to me, you really need to get it out there, because it's not a chapter book. It's just double pages of all the things like walk away from negativity, no more excuses, and all the things we deal with on a daily basis, because our minds have so many thoughts, like 70,000, between 50 and 70,000 thoughts a day. I mean, can you imagine what's going on in our brains? We need to calm, be the aphrodisiac person like you, Lily.
No doubt about it. Everything. What are the 6 steps that you talked about, Deborah? Because you mentioned that there are 6 steps that you came up with and everything. So what do you see as those 6 steps to have those fewer days that suck?
So I start with the decision, because isn't it all about making the decision that we're going to change what isn't working for us and try to find a way to enjoy our life? So I started with that. And then I have 8 double pages in there that basically all coincide and make sense within making the decision. And then it goes to ditch bad habits. And of course, that takes time. But again, we have to be patient with ourselves and not overwhelm ourselves. And then it goes into the mindset, because our mind, what we decide to focus on, our perspective, we can make a day better or worse. We could dwell on and have circular thinking and everything jumbled in our minds, or we could find ways to enjoy our life and let go of the things that distract. Did you know I read a study, 91% of the things we worry about never happen. So that means 9% of what we worry about and make ourselves crazy about happens. So really, things don't, we make sometimes mountains out of molehills. I'm not saying we don't have bad days. I would never say that. Life is messy, and some days are just really difficult. We lose family members, friends. I mean, stuff happens, but learning how to deal with it and not flying off the handle and getting yourself up in an uproar is a better way to live one's life, to learn to calm our minds and all that. So then the next step is the action, what kind of actions we take, and not reacting. So much of it is how we react to the things that happen around us. And when we learn to breathe first and not react rashly, we're better off too. Because when we let our emotions take over, you know what happens. We all know what happens. I'm sure we've all had those days. And when we control our anger and control our feelings, our emotions, we're better off. And because our brain loves patterns, we can do that over time. It's how we adapt to things. And then the last one is the attitude, our outlook, our attitude, how we approach things. And the last thing is just making the commitment to do it, to actually follow through, be consistent. And I want to go back to Lillian, is the self-love. It just is to take care of ourselves, to value our life, to have an abundance mindset, a growth mindset, and value ourselves and go after our passions, have purpose, have things that are meaningful. Because when we set our minds to things, we can do hard work. We really can. It's people who step up, like all of you. You step up and you make a difference in your life. Good days, bad days. Because why not? We're given this gift to be on this earth.
It makes a lot of sense. Deborah, you brought up an interesting point. How much do you think we worry about things that are outside of our control? I know that sometimes there have been times that I have worried about things that other people were doing or other people were thinking, and it's really not anything that I can control. I can only control what I'm doing and everything. But how much do you think we as a society and as people worry about things that are outside of our own control?
And that's really hitting the nail on the head also, because honestly, we can control ourselves and our emotions and how we think and control our negative thoughts, but letting go of and knowing that you can't control what other people do, no matter how much you try. It's just, we're not going to be able to do it. Yes, sometimes when you have good friends or people, colleagues that listen and everything, you can actually come to a meeting of the minds. But so many times people are going to do what they want to do. And what can we do? So I think what you said is absolutely the truth. And knowing that you can't, it actually helps reduce the stress, because you know, why are you worrying about what you can't control? And that minimizes the stress when you just accept it. You give yourself permission. As I say, just give it up to the universe, because what will happen will. And so many times, all the things we worry about, it really works out okay. I mean, go back to, I always do this. I worried about this. I made myself a little nuts. I don't do it anymore. I really don't worry. I really changed my mind and changed how I react to things. And that has made the biggest difference in my happiness level. It really has, because happiness is a choice.
Speaking of happiness being a choice, speaking of happiness being a choice and all along those lines, one of the things we kind of alluded to earlier and everything along those lines, but I'd love to hear your thoughts around it, because I did see the smiley face behind you and everything.
Lots of smiley faces. It works.
How can we not deal with the childlike love and things along those lines? Because sometimes I think that we don't pay enough attention to the childlike wonder and childlike suppress it as we get older. So I was just wondering, how important do you think it is for us to maintain a childlike wonder as we go into middle age, or even sunset years, or whatever people want to call them and everything? But how important do you think it is to deal with the childlike wonder?
I'm all for that because I am like a big kid. I like love to like just being curious, I think, is one of the most important things. That curiosity and being able to just try different things, to play, to just be able to go out and play. And I'm all for that. I do. I mean, I act silly many, many times, but you know what? Laughing, smiling, it
Mhm.
increases those endorphins. I naturally smile. It's always been that way, even when I was struggling with negativity and all that, because when we do, everybody try it, right? You feel so much better. There's something to it. It's really real when you smile. So I say be kid-like, exactly like what you said, Mark. I would think does everybody agree here?
I think so, and everything along those lines. So definitely, I know Lillian's got to get ready to go and everything, and we're going to wrap up. I'm glad we wanted to get you in the last minutes and everything of the show, and I definitely want to have you come back, Deborah, and everything along those lines. And I'm going to have when we close out, I'm going to have you have some closing words and everything. But I was getting to Lindsay and everything. So, Lindsay, I didn't get your words of positivity. If you want to tell folks of the bar that you're at again and everything, and also the name of that film, because you are part of a film crew. I think we're going to have Deborah, and Deborah's been on this show several times. She's a fan of mine because I think she definitely likes coming on the show, and she's definitely one of the major producers and all along those lines in that space. So I'm thinking she'll be on next week and everything. But just tell her a little bit more about the project, your involvement with it, and where if folks are in Vegas, they can see you do your thing.
Yeah. So if you're ever in Vegas, I do work at a Circa Resort and Casino downtown or Fremont Street. My personal Instagram, if anyone wants to check me out, it's at LindsayP440, LindsayP440. Also follow Shaken and Stirred. That's the documentary coming out. I believe the handle is at Shaken and Stirred the doc. On my Instagram page, and you'll see it all over there right now. The documentary is available for pre-order. You'll see this on my page. There's a QR code and a link to pre-order. It's 10% off while you pre-order and all that good stuff. We have our own website as well. We can sign up for mailing lists and updates and all that fun stuff. And yeah, as far as
message of positivity.
Yeah. I guess I would say just take it easy on yourself. You know, I'm a firm believer in that there's no rules as far as what makes you feel good, or if you're recovering from something, whether it be a death of a loved one or a breakup, there's no rules. There's no timeline. You can't be hard on yourself for needing more time or for having off days. As somebody who has a lot of off days, I've learned to really just accept it. And, you know, when the time is right, make changes in my own life. And take it easy on other people too, because other people, they might be having that day too. I completely agree with everything that Deborah said, but at the same time, I also firmly believe in no free will. I don't think people choose to be angry and mean or hurtful, and I don't. And you just got to take it easy on everybody. That's just my little piece, I guess.
That makes sense, and I appreciate that and everything. I do have to teach you about Fremont Street because, like I said, I did not go on the Strip. I did see a little bit of Fremont Street, and whenever I think of Fremont Street, the one thing that I remember about Fremont Street is y'all have got to be the neon capital of the world, because it looked like there was a lot of neon that was around that general area and everything like that. So I think
they have the big Viva Vision screen, which has probably been updated since the last time you were there. You can see it night or day. There's light shows going on, and then at nighttime on the hour, every hour, there's like a special themed light show. All the lights on Fremont go down. It's that thing lit up. It's super cool. Good times.
It sounds like wonderful, and definitely I'll try to make it out to Vegas and hopefully see you in action and all along those lines. And definitely I will be checking out that movie for sure and everything.
Thank you very much. We're excited about it. And when you talk to Deborah Richards, incredible director of the film.
She's incredible. I've had the pleasure of interviewing her now. I think this will be our third or fourth time. She's become a fan of me as an interviewer, and she's definitely always enjoying.
Awesome.
Cool. So definitely a wonderful lady and everything.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, sounds good. So, Deborah, just share a little bit more about the book and everything, and definitely one of the things that we do toward the end. And like I said, I definitely want you to come in when you have more extended time. I didn't know you'd be coming in toward the tail end, but I definitely wanted to give you the chance to get your message out as well. So, if you want to share any other things about the book or anything about these lessons that you want to offer and everything, and your message of positivity, now is the time to do that. And like I said, we'll have you come on and share when there's time for you to be even a more extensive guest and all along those lines. But I didn't want to not give you at least some time to talk about the book and all in that space, since I didn't know you'd be making a later appearance based on schedule. And we try to work it out like a real dinner party. People come and go, and they might be toward the end of the party as well.
For dessert, right?
Yeah.
A little tea and some dessert.
That's for last.
So yes, well, my website is the Daily Decisions with an s.com. And if anyone wants to go to your listeners, the dailydecisions.com/inspire, they could join my Positive Energy Club. It's complimentary, or we say free, and then they can download worksheets, motivational worksheets, happiness worksheets, and feel-good activities, and I offer that. And then again, my book, in 2 weeks, the hardcover and the paperback will be on Amazon and hopefully in bookstores as well. And as you can see it in back of me, I also have it here, 6 steps. Oh, it's backwards, but it's I didn't mirror it here. Anyhow, 6 steps to fewer days that suck. And I just really, my goal for this really is just to help people get unstuck, to find their joy. It's not about, what I offer is not about forcing positivity. It's just about approaching life differently, changing your perspective, changing your mindset, and giving the positive message. I would say is, when we just give ourselves a hug and we just appreciate ourselves, we feel so much better. And just getting up in the morning, what I say before you get out of bed is just give a big smile, because it does really work. You really feel good. And then say something positive that you can carry with you for the rest of the day. And when something goes wrong, think of the positive words. Set your intentions to just find ways to enjoy more. And understand, yes, times are tough, but it's all about how we react to it. And again, just give yourself a big hug and appreciate yourself, because you are your greatest resource. And when you care for yourself and you love yourself, then that's when you can be your best for other people, for your friends, for your family, for your colleagues. And life just becomes simpler. It really does. And I'm a testament to that. And the people I coach, it really works, especially when you bring positive energy and a warm, positive community around you, especially on Valentine's Day. Bring your cheerleaders and just have a blast. Love yourself. And you never know what happens. Magic is all around us. I really believe it. Blessings are with us too.
Yeah, I definitely believe that. And I know one of the things you talk about is executing those dreams. And I sometimes think that we try to squash those dreams and don't necessarily try to pursue the dreams. And we talk ourselves out of the dreams. We were actually talking about that earlier before you came on, how sometimes we talk ourselves out of the dreams, but you just get to have that positive attitude and go for the dreams and not have the dreams let dream stealers or other people squash the dreams, because sometimes we'll let other people kill the dreams that are the dreams for us and all in that space. But you don't have to have that attitude of either self-defeating ourselves or letting other people talk us out of things that could be very much positive for us in our lives and everything like that. So I know that's part of what you even talk about with the daily decisions and all along those lines.
Absolutely, 100%. And I mean, you have a wonderful show. I'm so glad that you invited me, because this is a joy. all the people you invite, everybody has just positive energy. And that's so important to get out there to the people listening because it's contagious. Positive energy is contagious. So is negative energy. So we want to promote the positive.
And that's what I try to do on this show on a regular basis. And we'll actually close out with a friend of mine who they are the co-host of the show on Thursday afternoon. But Shawnee Smith has a product called Can Do Spices, which is a positive energy and a positive health supplement that she came up with. It honors her dad of all people, but you'll hear that on the commercial and all along those lines. So we'll get out of here with that particular commercial, but y'all have all been great guests, including yourself, Deborah, and everything. And I hope that everybody will make a return trip because that's what this is all about. We're trying to have positive energy. And that's why I created this online dinner party where there are people that I met through being at a same event, like the way I found Jeremiah, or there are people that I found through the various outlets, like podcast guest or RTIR, which is where I found some of you at, or today and everything. Or where there are people like Deborah that got in touch with me and were like, hey, I got some great flair people and some people that need to be on the show, and then she'll be on the show next week and everything. So sometimes it's my own circle and of people that I know and people that I meet through the power of social media and all along those lines. But I'm always trying to bring positive people together and for us to learn from each other and all along those lines. And I've actually get ready to get out of here and do a discussion around Durham and Durham's interest in politics over at Duke's campus. So I'm getting ready to slide on out of here after running this commercial and ending this show. But I was glad to have all of you, including you, Deborah, as the last minute guest and everything. But hopefully we'll see some of you on return trips. And I hope that all of you enjoyed being here. I enjoyed having all of you. And I hope that all of you will make a return trip at some point or another in another show as we learn more about what you're doing and everything like that. I even like having the surprise guests, like the cats, because I am a cat fan. So I love having Lindsay's cat.
Here every time.
So yes, they can even sometimes you can turn on your TV. We'll send you the link. You can turn on the TV and they can just be in the background. They can be my surprise cat while you're doing the bartending. But it was great, and I look forward to seeing all of you back in the near future. But right now, we're going to go out with Can Do Spices, and I'm getting ready to get on Duke's campus to be part of this panel discussion around people and students trying to get engaged in the community and not just go to school, but also stay engaged in the community as well. So get ready to get on out of here and do that. But it's been fun, and I look forward to seeing y'all in the not too distant future, possibly even in real life, the way I stumbled across Jeremiah and everything like that. So don't be surprised if you don't see me stumbling into Las Vegas at some point or another.
Come on by.
That was good.
You know how people love to enjoy food and don't understand how to flavor their food or how to replicate a meal? They're interested in supplements, but don't know where to begin? Well, what I do is I take the guesswork out of enjoying flavor and wellness with my flavorful spice blends so that they can create delicious meals with healing benefits. Can Do Spice was created to help cooks at any level enjoy healing through food. Every spice blend was designed to give added health benefits of natural herbs. Every blend is complete. There's no need to add any additional spice for a delicious meal. Saving you time and money while adding supplements to your meals can be both tasty and fun. My earliest memories in the kitchen began with my father, Kenny Can Do Bond, so it was fitting that I would name this line after him. I have always looked to natural remedies to supplement the body, and I found myself hiding herbs and minerals in foods for my family. That's when it hit me. Everyone needs Can Do Spice. Everyone should be having this. It's an exclusive brand for cooks at any level who want to create flavorful dishes with healing benefits that can satisfy the body and soul. Add a little spice to your life. Give Can Do Spice a try.